when the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality. Open up those pages, it's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends, so join the book club by DLC.
Hello there, book clubbers. Hope you're dancing. Hope we gave you a reason to dance. We got a new novel to dive into. Not just a new novel, a new series that we're tackling. Hopefully there's some new viewers as well. Welcome. I'm Jeff Kanata. I'm here with Lana Bashinsky. Hi, Lana.
Hello, everybody. Fresh new start, and I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with my pick so far. Pretty happy with the pick so far.
Me too. You know, we usually like to start the show with a non-spoiler topic, and we will be doing that lots during the course of reading this novel. But since we are starting a new novel, a new series, a new author that we've never experienced before, we thought it would be a fun non-spoilery moment to kind of check in with our expectations, our first initial thoughts. So we're going to keep this part very non-spoilery. But, Lana, if you're not aware of our sort of history here, is I brought Malazan Book of the Fallen to Lana. I said, hey, I've been wanting to read this for a long time. Should we do it? We did it. This is a similar situation for you, Lana, right? This is a book series that you have wanted to read for quite some time. And so we're going to tackle sort of your white whale, your long-running to-be-read series. And I want to know, first of all, how it got onto your radar in the first place and what your expectations have been. And if, your first few chapters that we're doing this week have matched up to what your expectations are or have been different than what you expected.
Yes. So this book got on my radar when I was in university, where I took a class. I went to art school because I'm an artist by my day job. And the class I took was called Science Fiction and Fantasy. We have, a bunch of classes that are good for your core major and then some supplemental ones that are an English class, a math class, whatever it is. So I took sci-fi and fantasy, and through the course of it, we studied a bunch of different books, some reading the entire books, like read Beloved in this class. And some of them we did like a study of like reading a chapter from a bunch of different books. So,
Beloved, the Toni Morrison book?
That's the one.
Oh,
so that was like
the sci-fi and fantasy class. I guess that
is, the subject of magical realism and like how that fits in with the space. The times where we did sort of the short stories, we did a bunch of short stories, and we had bought these different books to read them. And one of them wasn't a short story, but it was, I always say, I've never read any Game of Thrones. That's not true. I've read the prologue of Game of Thrones only, so that we could see it has sort of like a short story feeling to it. That's the only thing I've ever read. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I've just never read or seen the rest of it. And one of them was what I thought was a short story that I had already read completely. But it turns out it was an excerpt from this book, because it wasn't until many years later that my husband, I think we were moving in together and we were unpacking the books, and he goes, why do you have this? And he holds up Gene Wolfe, Shadow and Claw. And I was like, well, I read it for school. He's like, you read this book for school? I was like, it's art school, baby, no rules. And that's when I found out that it wasn't a short story that was a full piece. I thought it was I never, you're in university, my focus was animation. I wasn't like going into and being like, oh, let's look more into that book that we read. I thought we read one short story and it was like an anthology of short stories, but no, it was this one. So I read that one chapter. I have no recollection of what it was, just enjoying it. And then
you don't know which chapter? It wasn't like the first chapter. It was just some chapter from the book?
Some chapter from the book. I have a terrible memory, as people who've been listening to us for a while know.
That's wild.
But my husband holding it up being haunted, that was the book that I read for my education, has stuck with me for a long time. And then since then, it would spring up random places. Somebody being like, oh, that's Gene Wolfe is my favorite author. I'm like, Gene Wolfe, isn't he that guy who read that book? And it would just kept being this staccato refrain that would come back up through my life until recently so many people around me in the games industry. I'm part of like just a book channel. What you reading at work? And it came up consistently enough that I'm like, this year's the year, baby. I'm getting on that Gene Wolfe train. Well, actually, I started the book club. I started thinking it, and I haven't read it because I knew that it would be a good possible follow up to the Malazan series. So added a little 3-year waiting period on the end while I waited for us to finish up that one, and here we are.
Love it. This author, this series, not on my radar at all. And I feel really bad about that. And I think part of that is the cult of the new, you know, the recency bias that everyone seems to have. And you know me, I'm obsessive researcher on what to read next and what to tackle next. And I think that most of the sources that I use to do that are skewed to things that are recent. And the fact that this was written in the 80s, you know, well within my lifetime, but still. and so for, you know, in a large sense, I'm really frustrated that this never came across my radar at all. But
as a research lover, or maybe just compelled to research, knowing that we were going to dive into this, did you go and do any research before you cracked open the book, or you're just like, this is what we're doing, I'm diving in with both feet?
No, that because it had already been decided, and because I trust you so much and I'm excited to read something that you're excited about, then it sort of supersedes that impulse of, you know, when it's me alone going, what am I going to read next? Then I gotta, you know, cross-reference and triple check and all that stuff. But if it's, you know, we're doing this for the thing because Lana's excited about it, I'm jumping in. I want to be spoiler-free. And I mean, I want to be spoiler-free anyway, but I want to be, you know, just see what it is. And I got to say, well, I want to hear the next part. Like, obviously, the way you came upon this was that you were exposed to the prose and the writing style, you know, but it sounds like you didn't really recall that too clearly.
I remember
years later
enjoying things. It's I think it's a great weakness of mine that I am not able to recall details very well. And maybe I'll hit the chapter and I'll be like, oh, this is the chapter. But similar to like anytime we were talking about Malazan, we were just chatting about this yesterday when we were talking about what we're going to talk about today. I will not remember at all what I read until you're like, the next chapter was Fiddler talking to Hedge. I'm like, oh, yeah. Now I remember everything. But before that sentence happens, I cannot bring it to mind on my own. So maybe we'll get somewhere and I'm like, this is the chapter that I've read previously, but who knows?
Yeah, that's interesting. I bet you will clock in. I mean, I think you have a pretty amazing recall. But the prose is so interesting. It's so interesting. It's really not like anything else I've ever read. The way the sentences sort of weave in and out of the present and the past, and how it sort of, you know, folds back on itself. It's a really and then of course the use of words, which many of which are archaic or contrived simply for this world, or kind of combinations of old words or Latin words, or, you know, just the construction of the vocabulary is fascinating, but the construction of the sentences to me is thrilling. It's really interesting. I'm really enjoying this so far.
It has it's weirdly both very casual and very formal feeling at the same time, which makes it feel easy, even though it's dense in a particular way. It feels graceful to flow through the sentences, and because there are terms that are archaic, and then there are terms that clearly are of this world. you can sort of tell the ones that are of this world versus not.
Yeah.
But my approach to this book is going to be much like it was with Malazan. So anybody who's joining us for the first time with Malazan, I'm like, I'm just going to let these books wash over me and then assume that the things that I need to know, the author will make clear to me in a sharper way.
I think that is absolutely the right approach. I think that's the intended approach, the intended way of reading these, because there's so much that is thrown at you that you have no context for. But I love that style of world building, quote unquote. It's an overused term, but I think it applies in that we are, as Erickson does with Malazan, he just sort of drops you in and you'll pick it up. And the things you don't pick up will become clearer later and are not super urgent for you to grasp. You just sort of get a sense of it. And I love that about it. And like you said, by like chapter 3 of this book, which the chapters are short, quick, but by chapter 3, I felt like I was really locked in and on the ride, and so I'm excited to dive into this one. I feel like this is going to be a really fun read. Dark.
Definitely dark. Definitely dark.
Yeah.
We did a 2 big 180s. We went from Malazan to Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. Felt like a big 180. Oh, we've turned that bus right around, baby.
We're back to the original 360 place.
Yeah.
It's dark.
Yeah.
All right. So
the last thing I'll say is, much like Malazan, and I've even seen it in the Discord, people saying, I bounced off of this a couple times. I wasn't able to sort of power through. Are there things within the first 6 chapters that makes you be like, hey, this was the thing that I think might be catching people? And is there anything you'd say right now to encourage people to push through that feeling?
Oh, I do think that the language can be off-putting, the sort of not really understanding the rules yet can be a little off-putting for some. I find that thrilling. But I can understand why folks are sometimes bewildered by this style, this notion of, sort of just dropping you in and letting the world sort of pre-exist before you got there. But I think that's one of the benefits of having a book club. Like, that's kind of why we're here.
Yeah.
And I think this is the perfect kind of book to tackle because there's strength in numbers. We have friends, there's friends around us, and we're going to all be parsing all this together and figuring it out. And I think strategically, if you're looking for a strategy, what you said is absolutely, I think, the right thing. Just let it happen. If you don't understand something, don't stress about not understanding. If you come across a word that seems strange and I love reading on Kindle because I can just hold my finger on a word and then it pulls up the definition. And
not,
right? There's a number of times where it like this doesn't nothing found. It's like, oh, okay, well, this is an invented word, and that's okay, right? That it's okay not to know. It's okay to just kind of like hold it as a placeholder in your brain, because later on those things will be filled in, and later on you'll have more familiarity with the world. So just sort of like give yourself a break.
Yeah. And this is where I'll put my obligatory request for folks. Books have like appendices or indexes. I encourage everybody to just take it at face value and sort of revel in the mystery of not knowing a thing until you know the thing. But knowing that's going to be Jeff and my approach, that's going to be lots of people's approaches in the community. If you've read these books before, if you're joining us for the first time, we are a spoiler-free zone, baby. This is our non-spoiler time. And then we will be, Jeff always flags really clearly when we start talking spoilers, but keep the comments spoiler-free, and let's have this beautiful mystery that we share together. And I'm really excited about jumping in.
Me too. So this will be that moment where I say spoilers starting now for the first 6 chapters of Shadow of the Torturer. And man, I actually kind of want to just start by reading the first little paragraph, which is the first sentence is, "It is possible I had I already had some presentiment of my future. I love great first lines. That's a great first line. The locked and rusted gate that stood before us, the wisps of river fog threading its spikes like mountain paths, remains in my mind now as the symbol of my exile. That is why I have begun this account of it with the aftermath of our swim, in which I, the torturer's apprentice, Severian, had so nearly drowned. Just an awesome first paragraph. It's really only a couple, 3 sentences. And already we're sort of having that like weaving style. That's the only way I can think to describe it. It's just sort of like these sentences that flow and slip and weave. And it is really interesting style of writing. But already we have so much information. Obviously we're in the mind of Severian, the torturer's apprentice, which being a torturer's apprentice is already like this evocative notion that is so powerful and will be filled in so interestingly in these chapters already.
Yeah. And it's like immediately you're like an apprentice to a torturer. Like, isn't that just something that like some pervert wants to do?
Yes.
But it's like they're really making it a science, as we'll see later as well. And there's juicy tidbits, seeds for the future, beauty in the way that the present is described, and then sort of like this string that's pulling you along, the little carrot on the stick that's like, my exile, your exile, he's getting exiled, I guess.
Yeah. Yes. And later on, he says something about, I think it might be the end of this chapter, he says something about, that's how I backed into the throne. And you're like, oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
We're going places, we're already like you said, dangling that carrot. So, and we have here, in this chapter, an introduction with him saying that he has this perfect memory where he can recall every single thing about his life in perfect detail. And in fact, it is described in such a way where he says, I don't understand how people can live not like that. Like, I can't fathom an existence where things like disappear from your memory. Like, I don't understand how people live like that. It's such an interesting construct of a character who has this perfect recall.
It is so interesting to think of the construct of this person with a perfect recall, but having perfect recall when we're talking about things that feel dramatic or salacious, like backing into the throne or exile. Perfect recall doesn't mean objectivity. And I think knowing that you're in the eye and we're in his head, I'm so curious to see how this fact of perfect recall through his lens sort of comes into play.
Yeah. But also he kind of intimates that maybe, sometimes he's crazy. He's almost like he's on the edge of insanity sometimes as well, and doesn't trust himself. And so such an interesting narrator to be in the brain of already. So we start, and he has already told us, I'm starting at this moment that I consider to be a symbol of my exile. So we're already starting in like, there's a metaphor I'm constructing. And it's so interesting that we start in this moment, and then immediately the second chapter is the moment right before this. Yeah. Right? He says, I'm telling you the moment after I almost drowned. And then we jump backwards and show the moment of almost drowning. Yeah. It's such a strange, like I said, this kind of weaving, disorienting, it's taking the reader and immediately kind of putting you on your heels, which I think is a fascinating way to start a novel. Mm-hmm. So what happens? Well, we have Severian along with these companions, Droat, Roche, Iata. They're described as volunteers, which is interesting. The volunteers are on the other side. Excuse me. Yes. The volunteers are on the other side of the gate. So they're at this gate. They've come from this swim, and they are watching these these volunteers are not allowing them to go through the gate because the volunteers are protecting the graves.
Yeah, protecting the dead.
The dead. And he describes it as our dead, which is also really interesting. And you're like, what is that all about?
Mm-hmm.
But even though they refuse to, let these boys in, Iata slips past, runs through this necropolis, which is already a cool idea. A necropolis seems to indicate that we're not just at a graveyard. We're at a structure.
A grave city.
This is a place. Yeah. Grave city. Exactly.
Yeah. I do love them being like, 3 teenage boys out for a swim. You can't come in. Anyway, we'll open this gate wide and slow.
Yeah, exactly.
As though there's not like
stay right there,
ruffians.
though. Stay right there. Yeah.
Iata slips in, and the volunteers, there's sort of like a formality to how they're presented, and he has like the big key, and Yada's like, peace, and slips through, and they're like, hey, why you little, and then immediately the guy like takes off, and who's like the lead volunteer chasing after him, trying to stop him, but he's a young kid, he's way faster than him.
It's
so he's
totally
just
a why you little. That's the perfect way. Why you little? Yeah, it's perfect.
And then the other kids are left with the other volunteers who their leader's gone, that everybody's just kind of like, well, that just happened. And then the Severian and I forget which of Drott and Roche are still there, and they sort of do the reverse manipulation. They're like, he'll never catch him anyway. I guess we're not allowed in, so we'll go. And the volunteers are like, hey, no. If you know how to catch this kid, you got to get in there and catch him. And they're like, I guess we'll go in with you. It's just like the immediate Uno reverse-y getting into the necropolis.
Total Tom Sawyer style.
Yes, yeah.
It's a pain to paint this fence.
Yeah.
It's joy, whatever.
Yeah.
The best, yes. The idea of them being volunteers is so interesting. Like they volunteer to guard dead bodies, which is just like you're already so curious about what's going on there.
Yeah, and it's anyway, not like because the idea of like a gravekeeper of somebody who's just like generally making sure nobody's like robbing the bodies is not an unheard of thing. There's security guards at graveyards normally, but having like these sort of solemn volunteers and like the lockedness of the gate who would like keep kids locked out of the gate. There's just like some grounding in the world.
You need a team to there's such a desire to steal dead bodies. That we need to, who's volunteering tonight for the anyway, so Severian comes upon actual grave robbers. It is pretty common, I guess. And this group of grave robbers, a woman who is described as having a heart-shaped face, and he's immediately sort of taken by their demeanor. They get into go ahead.
I'm going to add one detail to that. So they come into the graveyard, and Severian is walking down a path, and it's in the necropolis, but then you're picturing like, okay, necropolis, it's like a graveyard, but then he's walking down a path that is all crushed bones. Like the white of the path is bones. And you're like, well, messy graveyard. Somebody's not keeping it tidy in there, but it's a necropolis. But he's
volunteers could be tidying up a little.
Maybe bring a rake next time, Betty.
Time to lean, time to clean. You know what I
mean? But he's sort of like he can hear action, and they kind of split up, like quote unquote, looking for Iata. But he ends up going down this different path and ends up picking up speed because they know that they're just going to escape these guys. They're like, sure, we'll help you find our friend. No, we all wanted to be in here anyway. So they're trying to run away, but he's running down the path and actually runs physically into one of the guys and then falls down and sort of rolls off the path quickly. But when he happens upon them, he really happens upon them and is bounced off of one of them physically and is kind of hiding in the low grass, such that the guy turns around and is like, something hit me, but now nothing's here. Anyway, continue with the robbing.
So they are attacked, this group, are attacked by the volunteers, or at least one of the volunteers. who attempts to kill. And then we find out that this person is named Vodalus or Vodalus. And the woman with him is named Thea. This volunteer attempts to kill Vodalus with an axe. Vodalus kind of stumbles, and Severian describes it as, when he stumbled, it is if I stumbled along with him. Like I was there, and my life was held in the scales of that moment of Vodalus maybe dying. Was like this massively important moment for him. But Vodalus is not killed. In fact, Severian picks up the axe and strikes down the volunteer, killing the volunteer. And in that moment, he just completely aligns himself with Vodalus and this movement that seems to be embodied by Vodalus and the Vodalarium. There are others of this movement that are setting themselves in opposition to something we're told is called the Exultants and the Autarch. So it seems to me that the Autarch is the ruler, or sort of a person in command or in authority, and the Exultants are people who are aligned with that authority. And Vodalus is kind of this rebellion, this rebel movement. And he just immediately decides, I am part of this. And Vodalus gives him a coin that he accepts in the same way that soldiers accept a coin in this world that is a symbol of their loyalty and their commitment to the cause.
Yeah. A few details around the fight is while Severian is like lying in the grass, there's like, hints of magic. He's watching this trio of people around the grave. The person who is Vodalus, but he doesn't know that yet, at some point steps behind a gravestone or something that blocks his vision and seems to disappear, but his voice is still there, and he's like down in a grave, and they're actively pulling a body out of one of the graves that they sort of wrap up and give to one of his compatriots before the fight begins. He also has a wand, and there's like a moment where he pulls a wand out that becomes a blade, or it sort of unsheaths a blade. So he has a weapon to kind of defend himself, but there's magical sort of elements swirling through this. We also hear other volunteers possibly, we don't know if they're chasing Iyata, if there's other commotion elsewhere in the grave site, but they hear sort of cracks and bangs going off. That in my head is like, oh, is it a gun? There's like an idea that it's like a magical thing.
Well, like a laser pistol. I got an idea in my head that it was sort of like futuristic laser weapon.
Yeah, but they sort of had an implication that it was like one shot and then it was done. Because they also had one. Like, should we use the one that we got? And he's like, no, save it. Because it felt like one and done. And they sort of hand off the body, hand off the gun, and Vodalus sort of stands in front and sort of protects his colleagues as they retreat with the body that they got.
Yeah. It's a really cool scene to start. Vodalus gives Severian the coin, and the grave robbers get away. They escape, and they leave in what seems to be like a flying machine. So we're in future-y stuff also. This world feels very archaic and full of tradition. It feels very Dark Ages to me.
Yes.
But also we've got lasers and flying machines and spacey
Even the
stuff.
fact that they're like outside this iron gate, and the idea of like a big jangling key on like a cartoon key ring opening the gate. And then the robbers are like, anyway, peace. And then they go off to like a spaceship and go zip. And like, Severian describes like waiting and knowing that they got away because he saw their ship take off. And it's very interesting, very unique blend of eras.
Chapter 2 starts with sort of a download of a lot of details about Severian's guild, his torturers guild, And we seem to have this world in decline, this kind of world where the guild used to have a lot more members, used to have both men and women. They don't have women in it anymore. There's much fewer guild members than there's ever been. Everybody hates the guild. Like among everyone hates the Torturers Guild.
But everybody hates the Torturers Guild, most especially the people who use them the most. I thought was an interesting detail.
Yes.
The reason that they don't have. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're gonna talk about women.
The reason that they don't have women in the guild anymore is because they found that the women would go well beyond the prescribed torturing, such that they were like just super sadistic, and so like, okay, no women
are too cruel for torturing. Ooh. I was curious how you thought about that, because that, I don't.
It's one of those things where it's like, I get like somebody who is opting in, which we know people don't exactly opt into the Torturers Guild. We find out how people get in there later, but the idea of somebody opting into torturing, women be more efficient, and if they're going to do it, they're going to do it better. So
I like you took that as a compliment.
That's the most positive swing I can think of. They'll go they'll give it 110% in any direction.
Just overachievers is what they are. Yes. So we find out that you don't get to decide to be a torturer. You get recruited as a baby because you're sort of like a cast off or an unwanted child or some abandoned,
or a wanted child from somebody who was being tortured that then they pull out of the body that they tortured and then raises their own.
Gruesome.
Dark.
A lot of gruesome stuff in this.
Yeah. I guess big disclosure. If you've already read it, then you're already with us. But if you're just listening, which we found out at least one person just listened along, he's a torturer's apprentice, and the torture isn't like
not metaphorical.
Yeah. It's front and center, and it's a science that they will discuss.
Yeah. We're almost to that part, in fact. So we hear about Severian sort of adopting a mausoleum as his home base. He finds this mausoleum that has a coat of arms above the door that depicts a fountain, a rose, and a ship. And you go ahead.
I love this because he's adopted that as his home base. But even though there's this darkness, we're in this necropolis, him and his pals are still like young boys. And that is sort of written. You could picture what they're talking about in like the early light of spring, or like a golden lit summer afternoon of them hanging out together and having their play pathways through the necropolis. But then each sort of child having a spot that feels like their safe haven, but it just happens to be in a tomb with dead bodies.
Yeah.
There's like an elegance and like a warmth to the way that it's described with such love.
But it's
such a dark space. Yeah.
It's like we're hanging out with the little orphan boys, and they're what's the other reference is, just these like these little scamps that are playing in the ruins of the dead place, and we're sleeping in the empty coffins because they have cushions still in them. It's like it's at once both kind of charming and adorable and super dark and disturbing. But I love that combination because. He this is my little mausoleum. This is my little spot. And, yes, there's a lot of dead bodies around, but a lot of them have been taken out of here. And so these coffins are super comfy, and I like hanging out by myself. It's like,
and some of them aren't open yet. And I wonder who died in there. And I'll ponder it in my zone. His mausoleum that he found, he describes how the doors they're so heavy, like mausoleum doors are, but they've already been wrenched open. I wish I remember the word. He called them something like betraying doors or something, that they were supposed to stay shut, but they were cranked open, and now they're so heavy that they can never be shut again. And that's like his special spot. But it has this bronze crest on it that depicts a fountain overflowing with a fountain overflowing in the water, a sky ship, a ship in the sky, and a rose underneath everything.
Yeah. Anyway, so then we get to this moment of drowning where the boys, these little adorable scamps, like to swim in the disgusting
the
death water.
Yeah.
It literally, it's like a cistern that they're swimming in. They just go for a afternoon's dip. And he talks about these flowers. And again, it's this mix of like beauty and horror all at the same time. These beautiful water lilies that are like on the surface of the water, but then they have these black tendrils that hang down. Like he describes them like hair, like black hair hanging down. Oh, it's so evocative and so creepy. And the idea of swimming in that and like touching the icky tendril plants, like
he called them azure blooms. Did you say that they were glowing or they just were like blue?
I don't think they actually. Maybe they did. I didn't have a sense that they were glowing, but maybe I missed that.
I do know that they were azure, so they're these blue flowers. But
yeah,
so there's no way. Like what I'm picturing, I even as a kid would be like, "Let's get in there." It's like that's poison,
right?
Whatever's in there is gonna kill us for sure.
Well, but that's like this. I think the thing that is so communicated so beautifully in these first few chapters is Severian's upbringing. He's just around death all the time, and it is commonplace. It is nothing that he fears, nothing that that puts him off. It is just this fabric of his life of dead bodies, death, torturing, removing skin from people. He's a child, and that's his norm,
Yeah, and he's not the only one. We meet his little buddies. Is this where it talks about like the multiple steps and where that sort of gill where they go swimming and how they get there?
Yeah, it's like they talk about like a bulkhead, or almost like this is like the remnants of a ship. That's kind of what I got a sense of.
So the guild that they're in, they've got many layers. There's one of the chapters where they sort of break down the hierarchy of how you move through the guild. But there's lots of young boys and torturers in the guild at the service of the government or whatever. But there's many steps that lead down, and every single landing, there's sort of like a different group of kids, snapping and waiting to like beat each other up, unless they're like, well, we don't want to fight you. We just want to walk through. And they're like, fine, but if you want to fight, we'll fight you. It's sort of like the idea of like, they've got that, all that energy to get out is like these teenage kids. And so they go down all these steps and everybody lets them pass, even though they're like this sort of little ragtag group of kids, and where they're going, they're like not supposed to go, but it's too easy to lie and be like, oh yeah, we're just going down where we're allowed to go. But then they can still go crack into the bulkhead and shut the door behind them, the hatch behind them. I think it even says hatch behind them, and be in sort of like this special reserve.
Super cool. And the whole, I mean, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but the whole structure of the Citadel as this massive labyrinthine structure that even people who've lived there their whole lives like can get lost and don't know how to get to other places, and there's towers that they've never been to, and like that whole thing, that mystery and darkness that is so vividly expressed in these early chapters. I'm just like in such an interesting setting. Not anywhere I'd want to live, but
but I want to read about it. I want to live there in my mind. So when they go swimming in the gill, I don't know if you have better breakdown of what exactly sort of transpires, but at some point, it's described all those hairy flower roots. Severian's swimming in there, and he's sort of under the water and ends up getting tangled. He hasn't gotten tangled before, but like in the way that he's swimming, he gets caught in some of them and ends up thrashing in such a way that he turns himself around and doesn't even know where the surface of the water is. And while he's under there, he ends up like as his lungs feel like they're going to burst, getting some kind of vision coming to him while he's under the water.
That's right. Yeah. He sees Master Malrubius banging the spoon on the metal wall, like in the bulkhead, like where the kids are sleeping. He's kind of envisioning that him trying to wake up the apprentices.
Master Malrubius was the old master of the Torturers
Guild. Dead now, not alive.
Dead, yeah.
Yeah. And he feels like he's tied up on the torturer's table himself. But then he sees this enormous face in the water, and it's a woman's face. And he feels himself grabbed by these giant hands and then pulled out of the river. And he's convinced that his friends pulled him out. But then there's these villagers that come by, and they're like, no, bro, you jettisoned out of the water. Like, you were launched out. And they say very, I think, pointedly, did you see a woman?
Yeah.
And nothing else there's no follow-up. Nothing else is made of that. But it's like, you get the sense that, he kind of describes her as a goddess. And you get the sense that something supernatural occurred down there with him, but we're just sort of like past it.
He's like, no, Roche pulled me up by my hair. And they're like, anyway, where's the Iron Gate?
You launched out of the water.
Yeah.
You're like a porpoise.
Yeah. And then because it took, and even when they like revive him, he launches out of the water, but his lungs are still filled with water. They like are doing CPR mouth to mouth on him. And it's described, he rolls over and is like puking up the black water. I'm like, are they swimming in an oil pit?
I mean, they're swimming in filth. That's for sure. Whatever it is, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like so beautiful here with all these toxic plants. So it pukes up all this black water, and then because he's so weak and like he can't like use his limbs because he was on the verge of death, it takes them a while to get going, and that's why they don't make it back to the gate in time, and that's why the whole first chapter happens.
Yeah. Crazy. And having that out of order where you need to reorder it in your brain. It's such an interesting way to start.
Especially knowing that it's like, there's an inciting moment and I'm starting this journal internally with my perfect memory. Now, let me tell you how I wanted to start the journal. It's like him taking the step back and knowing that this vision that he had is him being like, time to start cataloging.
Yeah, but I need to start here. I'm intentionally telling you I'm starting here because it's a symbol of my exile.
What does it mean?
Interesting phrase.
Maybe just the symbol of the door being locked, but cranking your way through there anyway.
So chapter 3, which is the day after the things that happened at the necropolis, Severian returns to class. We have this moment of him being shown how to remove like these long strips of flesh, which seems to take a lot of skill, and so these torturers are not unskilled in what they do.
They talk about this woman that they're torturing, and it's written the way, like, those old Renaissance paintings, maybe they're not Renaissance, I'm getting the era wrong, but those paintings that show like the theater of medicine. You have literally like sort of the citadel kind of seating and then somebody performing an operation while all the other doctors watch. It's sort of illuminated in that way. And they're like, all right, let's go in. Our client is in here. The client being the person they're torturing.
What a crazy word to use for the people you're torturing. Our clients, and they describe them as like, we love them. We love our clients.
They get like clean beds. They all get a little writing desk. They like have like the niceties for your torture. And then the
torment.
The master torturer is like, all right. And then what did we give them? Like, what was the procedure here? It's like, I'm picturing like somebody in scrubs being like, intern, what's this person diagnosed with? They're like, oh, we gave them 2 shots of this stuff. Exactly. Even though it wasn't super effective, they did end up passing out. It's like, oh, you are giving them stuff that would force them to stay awake, so they have to endure the torture. But it wasn't at quite enough dosage because they ended up becoming unconscious and they didn't feel the torture, which means it's a failure. It's like spooky.
It's even spookier than that because Severius is like, well, this woman that we're torturing, does she know anything about Votalis? And his teacher's like, oh, never listen to anything they say while we're torturing them. Don't ever, they'll say anything while we're torturing them. You can't believe. So it's like, why are we torturing them? If like the whole idea of torture, you would think, or I would think, is to get information from a person.
I do think they're trying to get information from the person, but for the apprentices who, you wouldn't have a whole torturers guild if you ever had apprentices, I don't know, be radicalized by something that they're hearing from perhaps another sect of
I guess, but
rebellion.
I feel like
I got the impression
it's farther than that. I feel like him saying like, don't ever believe the clients.
I didn't get the sense that it was don't ever believe. I got the sense that it was like, hey, you're not allowed to, it's the forbidden books. It's the forbidden knowledge. You're not allowed to know these things. Whatever you're hearing, no, you didn't. Get it together was sort of the threat that I got, was that
interesting
forbidden knowledge.
Well, maybe.
Bit of both. Like, bit of column A, bit of column B.
Maybe it is. So anyway, he Severian sneaks away, checks out the coin that he got from Votilis, and it's this. It's got a flying ship on one side. It's got this androgynous face on the other side.
One more little detail about that is just the way that it's described. Is as he's there, we start talking about the coin, or Severian starts thinking about the coin, because he's talking with the master and he puts his hands in his pockets intentionally to distract from being scolded about something else, where he'll just get like, oh, in your hands in your pocket, like stand up straight. And it sort of, distracted the master. He's like this manipulation thing still, and his hands in his pockets. He's like, oh yeah, the coin's in there. And then it becomes like his only focus is being like, oh my gosh, I have this coin in my pocket. I have to go look at this coin in my pocket.
Yeah. He hides it in his mausoleum. And then we hear a little bit more about how the guild works, the difference between apprentice and journeyman. And Roche tells Severian that they're going to get a bunch of new prisoners coming as winter is coming, because there's this war that seems to be happening, and brought the autarch back to his house, his palace, and the house absolute. And it's a wonderful like description of like, oh, is the autarch coming here? And he's like, what? Here? No, you would know it if he was coming here. Like the way that's all described is like, he lives far, far away, would take weeks to get there. He could fly here if he wanted to, but why would he do that?
Yeah. We get a really nice look at all of the hierarchy, sort of all the way up to the autarch through the lens of this torturers guild. So we have like the very young apprentices. They're not even really apprentices yet. When Severian's being scolded, he's being scolded being like, you're going to be the senior most junior apprentice. Is this really the lessons that you're going to be passing forward? Is about like exactly what we've not taught you. And then he's sort of getting scolded with that weight of responsibility of how he's about to graduate. We found out his two buddies are going to graduate to be the youngest.
Journeyman.
The journeyman.
So they're like out of here, and he's going to be the senior most of the lowest on the totem pole, basically. And it's like, you have a lot of responsibility being the oldest one here who's still not been graduated.
Old enough.
So Severian is like convinced that these people that they're torturing are devotees of Votilis, and he has to clean his master study, Master Gerlo's. He has to clean his study. So he's there. He's like, I'm going to find evidence that they're followers of Votilis. And he finds out the opposite, that they have absolutely nothing to do with Votilis. And he's kind of disillusioned by that. And he's like, did I even invent this whole cause? Did I, am I deluding myself, basically?
We get the sense of his instability. I mean, from the very moment he looks at Votilis being like, I am Votilari, like commits himself to him immediately. In the moment, it's not clear of whether or not he actually already was leading up to that, or if he just saw him. And so it instantly switched like a light. But
he describes he describes the Votilis, the ideas of Votilis, or their cause. He says, of course I knew all of the precepts of that cause because it's in the air.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, so go ahead.
So because of like this coin and this like obsession, when he looked at the coin, it was like everything is so special. There's like this building of energy. So when he has it in his head that everybody they're torturing is part of the Vodalare, he like took on different jobs or traded chores with people so that he could start. Oh no, that's a little bit later. But he's like trying to sneak them a little bit of extra food because he's even though they're torturer, he's trying to like help out. And when he gets the opportunity, when he's cleaning his sort of master's room, as soon as he can, he just got a bunch of dossiers, and looking through them all, he finds out, oh, that was all in my head. None of these people are just arbitrarily helping them. And then he starts getting his head is like, is the coin even real? Do I?
Yeah. And he's like, oh no, it's the autarch's face on the coin. Fool on me. I guess I'm the.
Was it the autarch's face on the coin? I thought it was just a face. It was like a neutral face.
Well, he thought that at first, but at least the cheat sheet I'm using here says that it's not that it is actually the face of the autarch. So,
the other thing that we forgot to mention with the coin is when he put it away, he like cast a spell on it, and it wasn't clear to me whether or not that was like a real spell. Because then he's like, and then there's other things that people say you're supposed to do, like at midnight with bones.
Right.
So it seems kind of like a kid mantra, but there is also the idea of sort of magical things in this world. But is it magic or is it science? Because there's like old spaceships and stuff. Like there's a lot of little mysterious magical things happening. But when he goes to check on the coin to be like, am I crazy? And he looks at it and he goes, I think I am.
I am actually crazy, it turns out. Yeah. And I do love what you brought up about the fact that he was like, these are my people. I'm going to sneak them extra little bits of food. I mean, they're going to be tortured, but I'm going to make it really extra nice for them because these are my
guys.
Yeah, this is the cause that I belong to now. And he's like, wait, no, none of them are. They're all just like petty thieves and losers. Yeah. Anyway, interesting. So the next chapter, I mean, the book just keeps getting better and better, I think. I really, by chapter 4 and 5 and 6, I was like, I'm in this world. So in chapter 4, what happens is Severian is cleaning the drains between the Matachin Tower and the Bear Tower. The Matachin Tower is the tower of the Torturers Guild. Bear Tower is this tower of like the animal handlers who train attack dogs and attack animals, and they fight. I don't know if it's for sport or for military or why they're fighting the animals, but a lot of animals die and they just dump their bodies. And he's cleaning the drains of that, which is just the most foul notion I could imagine. And he sees this 3-legged dog, which he describes as a dog, but he also it's described as being as big as a bear, basically, like bear-sized dog.
He's like, oh, there he was. He looked up at me, and then he's like, and his canines were as large as my hand. I'm like, what in the?
His head was so big that it almost couldn't support its own weight. Like it would split in half because it's so huge.
Oh, there's that. I wish I tagged that as a favorite sentence, but it's like it talks about it as the dog kind of heals, but its grin is so wide, it looked like its head would split in half.
Yeah.
It's like a freaky beast.
Freaky beast. Total freaky beast. Yeah,
like
it's like almost like a reptile or some kind of horrible, like venom from Spider-Man, Anyway, he falls in love with it immediately because why wouldn't you with a face like that?
A puppy like that?
A little puppers, little pooch. And he names it Triskel, and he decides to adopt it as his own little puppy dog. And so we know that this thing is massive. So by the transitive property, we discover that Severian must also be enormous because he can pick it up in his arms and carry it. And not only that, he can like hide it under his cloak. He gets this like giant cloak and he hides it on his person, like, two kids in a trench coat.
So one of the things that we got, when his buddies were saying, we're going to get all these new people to torture, we might even open another floor. We know there's empty floors in the place that they're at. In order to get the dog inside, because it's winter outside, it was almost freezing out there near the drain dump zone. He goes inside and there's another, like a journeyman, like somebody one rank up. They have a special sword that they carry and a big cloak that they carry. And he offers to relieve him or something because he's like, I think he's like, I have to pee. And he's like, I got you, man. And so he takes his cloak and he takes the sword. And even that guy's cloak, because he was a bit larger than him, is bigger than his body is. But because the fabric is so dark black, you can't see wrinkles. You can't tell that it's an ill-fitting thing. You just look like a...
Their guild color is this thing that they describe as being darker than black.
Cool.
It's such a cool idea.
So when he's carrying the wolf, he looks... Or the wolf, I'm thinking of it as a wolf. He's carrying the dog. It gives the appearance from a distance as maybe he's just a more portly journeyman torturer. And he takes it down to this other level. And it explains, like, because they might be opening that level, it's reasonable that this journeyman might go down there and then come back up again. And then likewise, it's reasonable that an apprentice might scamper down there. If the journeyman obviously forgot papers or something, he would send him on the errand.
Have
you ever seen totally legit that I went down there. Nobody would suspect a thing.
Did you ever see that cartoon, like old-timey cartoon with the person trying to steal a piano by putting the piano under their coat, and they're walking and they're taking the piano out, and it's obviously a piano underneath the coat? Yeah. That is the image that I had in my head of this enormous bear dog under his coat, and he's just had a few too many cupcakes today. I don't know. This is hilarious. But
he's dripping blood.
Yeah, I know. It's wild. Anyway, so he takes the puppy dog and operates on it, uses his skills that he's learned as a torturer, an apprentice torturer, to like suture up the dog's wounds and
amputates its leg.
Yeah. And he starts, sneaking food to the dog, making sure the dog is okay. Dreams of the dog, like talking to him and being his pal and buddy. And then 1 week later, he comes back and the dog is gone. Mm-hmm. But he sees footprints and follows the footprints down to this weird tunnel system.
How quickly things go from being like, oh, this is going to be a tale of a man and his dog, to like disorienting, strange. Is this like Severian's mind? The Citadel is so weird. He follows the footprints and he's worried about the dog and what could happen to it. Yeah. And it's like just stumbles through pure darkness. It talks about him bouncing off walls and things, and then getting into his own sort of frantic panic and eagerness to get out, because he's like, now I'm trapped in this pure black tubes. What am I going to do? Yeah.
Oh my God. And he's like, I just kept going forward in the dark because I knew if I turned around, it would be worse. And he figured, like, I got to keep going forward because it's going to lead to something. And I'm like, the idea of being in pitch darkness, lost, and not knowing, oh, dude, as I was reading that, I was like, that is a horrifying notion to me.
Yeah. Oof. And just being like, and what is this place? You're in like a kind of a muddy, I'm picturing basement, because there's like mud and flooding, and you found like a dry spot, and like,
it's like a sewer system almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he does end up finding a little hole that's barely the width of his shoulders, and he wriggles out into the cold. And it's like, well, so embarrassing. Time to go start knocking on doors and try and get back inside.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, he's in this area that he's never been to, and he meets this woman named Valeria, and this garden that he's in. She calls it the atrium of time, and they have this really fascinating conversation about, they both live in the same place, the Citadel, but neither has ever been to where the other lives.
Because she's a woman, I'm like, well, she's obviously not in the Torturers Guild.
Right. And he's like, oh, the Atrium of Time. Is that why you decorate this place with, they call it that because of all the clocks that are decorated? He's like, oh, no. It was already called that, so we just decided to decorate it this way.
Well, I think they for whatever reason, he's like, the name is why we put the clocks on it, is because that's the vibe it gives off.
It's called the Atrium of Time, so we figured clocks, I guess.
But even that is so interesting to be like, you're right next to each other and just like separated by some lost knowledge.
Yes.
That is walking distance away.
And it feels very intentional, right? It feels like these silos that are kept separate to maintain order and to keep people in ignorance, and they share this kind of knowledge with each other of like, what are you doing over there? And what are you doing over here? And I know, I thought that was really an interesting thing. And she's like, well, I haven't seen your dog, but hopefully you find him, I guess.
Well, also, doesn't she say something like, where do you work? And he's like, well, like that building over there. And she's like, oh, yeah, right, like past the witches. And he's like, the witches are better known than us.
Yeah.
But is it ever described how he gets back? He's just kind of like, anyway.
She lets him out, right? Doesn't she like let him out? And she's like, okay, well, this way it leads back to the path.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but then just like, who is she? A lot of little mystery drops.
Yeah. And he's also like, well, I never did see, or I would see Triskel, the dog, around sometimes after that. And I hope that whoever found it treated it well. It's like,
he's like, I don't know who, because when you meet him, you're like, okay, this is going to be like his buddy forever. And he says like, I never did have another dog after that. And it's like, oh, he must have been his lifelong companion. And it was like, no, somebody else started feeding him and taking care of him, I guess. And so I would just see him. Bummer.
I hope he's all right. Anyway, that was a day I had that I never forget because I don't forget anything. Okay, so then chapter 5, we find out that Drot and Roche have gotten promoted into the journeyman. And they're like, later, dude, you're now the head of the apprentices because you're the oldest of the apprentices. And his the first thing he decides to do is like, all right, well, I got to punch everybody else in the face.
I love this described as like enjoying the ceremony, like it's a graduation celebration, but like the weight of responsibility and realizing like, Drot and Roche had him to be their right-hand guy kind of.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just realizing that I don't have somebody like that. And so he's like, hey, you, come here with me. Hey, everybody. Hey, all you little younglings, follow me. And brings them aside, like slams the door behind him and like punches his Iata to be like, you're going to be my second? Say yes. And he's like, okay. And he's like, now the rest of you. And then they just like,
now you punch the next guy down the line and keep punching until everybody knows that you don't mess with anybody.
The door's not opening until all of you agree that you're going to listen to everything I say forever. And they're like, well, listen.
Yeah, it's very Lord of the Flies, right?
Yeah.
It's very like, okay, the first thing I have to do is make sure nobody tries to usurp my position.
Mm-hmm.
That what's going to happen is they're going to see weakness. So I got to demonstrate a lack of weakness.
I just love being like quick 20-minute sidebar from the old ceremony.
Yeah.
Gotta maintain order.
What a special day where I get to be the next one in line. All right, who gets punched? So one of his new duties now is that he has more freedom, and he's given this task of delivering messages to other guilds from his guild. So he has to go to deliver this message into the who's he delivering it to?
The librarian.
The librarians. That's right. The librarians guild. So he doesn't know how to get there.
I like about the sort of the building of responsibilities is he's like, oh, there's all these little things that I have to care about and delegating things. And there is enjoyment in that. But one of the things that he mentions, and we kind of get his perspective of a glance that I think Drott gives Roche when he says something that says clearly that he's naive about places outside of the torturer's hall. Like, oh, you've been outside? And Drott and Roche kind of look at each other like, you'll get there someday. And so this feels like the first journey that he's been on that is really outside of his normal places of influence. And so we're seeing him growing into like the knowledge that Drott and Roche have learned already.
So he's going through the Citadel and these areas that he's never been to. He gets to this long hallway that has all these strange paintings on either side. And there's a dude on a ladder cleaning the paintings. And one of the paintings, so cool, is described as this a guy in armor who has this golden helmet, and he has this staff that's not a weapon, but it's got this kind of strange flowing thing on the, coming off the side. And it's like, oh, that's
astronaut. That's
a man landing on the moon, planting a flag on the moon. He's like, it's in this desert landscape, and you can only see it in the reflection on the golden helmet. And I was like, that is so cool.
And him talking about the helmet like it's a warrior's helmet, but it doesn't have eye slits. It doesn't have a place to breathe. And I just love Severian's sort of attraction to and description of works of art in the world, his attraction to the bronze plate, his attraction to this piece of art where he's like, to be a warrior in that desert plain, both is like so appealing and so like, what a horrible desert that there's nothing there to even, he's sort of haunted by his own reflections on the artworks that he's coming across. It's very beautiful.
I can't remember if I pulled this as a quote or not, but I love there's a sequence where he talks about how we used to, as a species, as humans, we used to try to leave and explore out into the stars, and then we stopped, and then we burrowed deep into the ground. It's like really cool, kind of oblique reference to where we are. This is like far future, it seems.
Yeah, I forget. There's also little details that I don't remember exactly when they come up. But even when he's going through these hallways, it'll say things like, "There's a bunch of lights that would just burn forever. Most of them have gone out, but it's like, okay, there's like electricity places of lights from these eras." But
I love that too. They would last forever, but they've gone out. Like, well, that's a contradiction. Yeah.
Then there's I forget exactly when it is. And it's interesting that they would have like this man on the moon picture, because don't they talk about how the moon is green now and much closer to the Earth?
Yes.
Or is that later?
Yeah.
I think that's a bit earlier.
I can't remember where that happens, but they talk about how it is now. It's been like terraformed. Yeah.
And so it's like a green ball, and it's like its orbit is decaying.
Yeah.
And little sci-fi like shots throughout what feels like such an archaic medieval space.
Right.
It's so interesting.
Very cool. Yeah. Anyway, they have this really interesting discussion. He and this worker, this cleaner, who's just like, we get all the cool paintings that everybody gets sick of, and I come here and I get to clean them. And how cool is my life? I love my life. I love being the painting cleaning guy. And then these other two.
Oh, but quickly, he also says, it's his connection with Vodalus and just saying the name Vodalus, he'll just like throw it out sometimes. And so he's like, it reminds me of Vodalus. Anything. And then the guy comes down there and he feels like he came down there because he said Vodalus, but he doesn't know how to like bring it back around or bring it back up in conversation, and just trying to get that out from this person. So he's still sporadically just trying to reach out to
just
whatever.
Fishing for knowledge. Yeah. So then these two soldiers stroll up, and Severian's like, "Hey, I gotta deliver this message. Can you guys tell me how to get to the library?" And they're like, "Well, where are you from?" And he's like, "Torturers Guild." And they're like, "You hate Torturers Guild. Just go get out of here, kid." And they're like, "Yeah, you go that way. Get that way to get to just get out of here."
They're like, "Go that way." And then the one guy's like, "In front of us, I don't want to look at him." And then the other guy's like, behind us, he's a torturer. And they just have like this stuck up, it's got a gruesome profession.
Yeah, I don't know if I would feel too happy hanging out with the apprentice torturer either. I mean, I was like, I kind of get it, you know? But then the dude on the ladder is like, hey, those guys totally told you the wrong way to go. That's not how you get there.
He's like, well, that's a way to get to the general area. But he'll be in his office, which is that.
It was awesome. They just like told him the wrong way just to like make him leave because they hate him so much. Very funny. Anyway, so the final chapter that we're reading this week, he arrives at this dark room. He finds the master of the curators, which is the name of the chapter. And he's greeted by this archivist, Master Olton, who he quickly realizes is blind because Master Olton says, hey, thanks for the letter. Could you read it for me? Like maybe right now? He's like, in the dark, dude, in the dark. I was like, oh yeah. I've totally forgot it's completely dark in here. Bro, come over here. And he calls over CB. I'm gonna pronounce it CB.
I was like Sci-Bi, but I thought CB too, just because it was cuter.
Yeah, CB. CB brings over this, candelabra so that Severian can read the letter. And so many of my quotes, I had like 3 or 4 quotes that I pulled from this scene because I love this scene so very much.
Mm-hmm. The moment that he calls over CB, I was like, ooh, we got a sigh. I'm like, is this going to be an android person?
Oh,
like
interesting.
My first thought, trying to be like, where would he get the name CB? That's such a strange name.
Yeah.
And I also liked how him running into him in the dark and his eyes adjusting and him sort of being this looming figure had kind of the same feeling as him seeing Baudelaire in the graveyard, or the trio in the graveyard. There's like
the darkness.
Yeah, just the darkness and this imposing figure.
Yeah. But anyway, Master Olton kind of describes his guild, the Librarians Guild, and they're not that different, librarians and torturers. It turns out, at least how they recruit and how the world works for them.
Big old baby thieves.
Big old baby thieves. Yeah. And I have, this is one of my quotes, but I mean, I love how he talks about just like falling in love with books and then realizing that they're objects, not just word. And it's so beautiful. And I'll get to reading in a second, but, he, they realize they come to the knowledge that Severian is a torturer too. And they're also kind of not super hip to that.
But they're not like antagonistic about it.
Right.
Because, and there's even not quite the realization about it. He's like, what color is your guild wear?
It's like so black, the blackest of blacks.
The black is darker than black. And he's like, right, okay. And then they keep talking. And then later he's like, well, master, blah, blah, blah. Or when they open the letter, CB is the one. Yeah, like he says, he holds it out like a proclamation in the light when he reads it. Is they need to obtain these 4 books to try and make one of their clients' lives more comfortable. And he's like, whoa, you're a torturer? And he's like, yeah. He goes, okay, well, let's talk about some books. And they just sort of like... in their discussions, he's talking with Severian, who is asking, questions as he's been doing. He's like, it's such a shame you're a torturer. You could have been such a great philosopher.
Yeah. So cool. So there's these 4 books that this prisoner, Catalane Thekla, has requested. And so as torturers often do, they just want to, they want to make her as comfortable as she can possibly be. They want to, any request, whatever we can do to make your torture more palatable, I guess.
As you continue to beg and pray that the government, the autarch, will think more kindly of you. It's described as her, like, basically praying for forgiveness.
Yeah.
And she's going to pray. These books are going to help her pray for
There's like
future.
An actual prayer book. There's a genealogy book. And there's this compendium of legends called Wonders of Earth and Sky. And they sort of talk about that for a minute. And they have this conversation where Severian's like, hey man, is it true that like there's some people that like eat people and gain their knowledge? And he's like, I believe that's what they do. And he's like, well, so like if I ate the hand and then somebody else ate the other hand, would we each have like half the knowledge? He's like, no, dude, they both have the whole knowledge. He's like, oh, wow, that's cool.
Well, he's like, that's cool, but how does that work? Like, how much? He's like, well, you have to have at least a mouth, like more than a mouthful, I think he says. So you could probably, he's like, so does that mean a whole life can live in just a finger? And he's like, I guess so. Thinking about mouthful size of eating a person. Yeah. And he's like, well, that's disappointing. A whole life. And I didn't pull it, but
so good.
The librarian saying, well, first of all, when you think about it and where life begins, it begins as like a little splat of sticky fluid.
It's like the whole life is right in there. Yeah.
The whole life is in there. And he goes, for you, you're thinking, how is it possible that a whole life can fit in a finger? And me looking back on it and knowing I'm closer to the end of my life and realizing it's so small. Of course it could.
Yeah.
Just that distance between your perspective on life when you're young versus your perspective on having lived when you're older, I thought was really lovely.
Yeah. In the context of cannibalism.
Yeah.
Just real.
So one mouthful of finger away from knowing a whole existence.
Anyway, so that's kind of how it ends. He leaves and he starts like looking through the books before he brings them to Matachin Tower.
But we leave on another mysterious note. He's like, I head back towards Matachin Tower and to my destiny.
Yeah, to my destiny. So cool. I'm into this, man. It is really interesting world. It is like I said, the prose is so fascinating, and this character who is sort of wrestling, you get the sense that he is telling this story at some later date for some purpose to some audience that is important, right? And all of that is still mysterious at this point, but I'm hooked. I'm very curious as to what's going on.
There are so many pieces of it that I feel so compelled to want to digest, of like all these names of these places. The fact that it's Earth, it is spelled URTH, but that is Earth. It is the moon. This is Earth. Why is it spelled like this? Is it like actually a different Earth? Is this a extreme extrapolation through the sci-fi era back into medieval burrowing? That's
kind of what my sense of it is, that we've gone through some horrible, humanitarian crisis. The Earth has gone through something truly terrible. Like we had this moment of space exploration and a high technology, and things have reverted to like a new dark ages.
Yeah.
But
then the things that we're perceiving as magical, because there's not like been anything that is distinctly like, oh, that was magic.
Right.
Just questions of things that feel magical, but I don't know if there's literally magic in this world, or if it's just the past tech that is far future tech for us. It's just spectacular.
Cool stuff. All right. We have, as we like to do, favorite quotes from our reading section. I have more than I should have, frankly.
I've got a bunch.
Yeah.
I've got one that just was very near the beginning of the book that I just thought was the first sentence that I was like, dang, that's beautiful and evocative. Still wet from Gyul, we waited. In the recesses of my mind, we stand shivering there even now. Just as all that appears imperishable tends toward its own destruction, those moments that at the time seem the most fleeting recreate themselves, not only in my memory, which in the final accounting loses nothing, but in the throbbing of my heart and the prickling of my hair, making themselves new, just as our commonwealth reconstitutes itself each morning in the shrill tones of its own clarions.
Jeez, come on.
There's something about him, this poetry, a mysterious, what is Gyul? Where is Gyul? What is Gyul? And then the commonwealth, knowing every morning wakes up with like clarion sounds being like, yeah, we're still in power. There's learning something about the world and this guy. He's got this perfect memory. It's just, come on.
This is my version of that. This is a very short section that I just thought was gorgeous. There are encounters that change nothing. Earth turns her aged face to the sun, and he beams upon her snows. They scintillate and coruscate until each little point of ice hanging from the swelling sides of the towers seems the claw of the conciliator, the most precious of gems. Then everyone except the wisest believes that the snow must melt and give way to a protracted summer beyond summer. Nothing of the sort occurs. The paradise endures for a watch or two, then shadows, blue as watered milk, lengthen on the snow, which shifts and dances under the spur of an east wind. Night comes, and all is as it was. That is an entire page of my book, 2 paragraphs to describe nothing changes. We think it does. It doesn't. Nothing really matters. It's just so cool.
Even the nuance of blue of watered milk, I like that. Is so specific. I don't know, growing up, I don't know if you ever had this experience. I was a milk household growing up. You know, we had the 2%, but the parents drank the skim. You ever accidentally pour skim when you thought it was 2%? It looks blue. It's like looks irradiated. It's just such a specific color. And I picture it as watered milk, which is not quite the same thing, but it's just I just love it.
Yeah.
Another one of my sentences is with Vodalus in the necropolis, in that sort of moment of action. I don't know if you have the same one, but I'm going to read it.
Do it.
Sorry, I'm just making sure I'm starting the right spot. Great. Who are you? He called to Vodalus. And what power of Erebus give you the right to come here and do something like this? Vodalus did not reply, but the point of his sword looked from one to another like an eye. The leader grated. All together now and we'll have him. But they advanced hesitantly, and before they could close, Vodalus sprang forward. I saw his blade flash in the faint light and heard it scrape the head of the pike, a metallic slithering, as though a steel serpent glided across a log of iron. The pikemen yelled and jumped back. Vodalus leapt backward too, I think for fear that the other 2 would get behind him, and then seemed to lose his balance and fell. All this took place in dark and fog. I saw it, but for the most part the men were no more than ambient shadows, as the woman with the heart-shaped face had been. Yet something touched me. Perhaps it was Vodalus' willingness to die to protect her that made the woman seem precious to me. Certainly it was that willingness that kindled my admiration for him. Many times since then, when I have stood upon a shaky platform in some marketplace square with Terminus Est at rest before me and a miserable vagrant kneeling at my feet, when I have heard in hissing whispers the hate of the crowd and sensed what was far less welcome, the admiration of those who find an unclean joy in the pains and deaths not their own. I have recalled Vodalus at the gravesite and raised my own blade, half pretending that when it fell, I would be striking for him. He stumbled, as I have said, and in that instance, I believe my whole life teetered in the scales with his.
That's so rad. I mean, that's like this flash forward to like, there's a moment I'm going to be a badass and I'm going to be standing and there's going to be people begging for their life in front of me. And I'm going to think back on this moment.
Yeah.
The line about the
serpent, like a metallic serpent sliding along a log of iron was made me be like, oh, come on.
All right, this is a section from when he finds his little puppy dog. If I had found him 2 years before, he would have been a divinity to me. I would have told Droat and the rest, and he would have been a divinity to us all. Now I knew him for the poor animal he was, and yet I could not let him die because it would have been a breaking of faith with something in myself. I had been a man, if I was truly a man, such a short time. I could not endure to think that I had become a man so different from the boy I had been. I could remember each moment of my past, every vagrant thought and sight, every dream. How could I destroy that past? I held up my hands and tried to look at them. I knew the veins stood out on their backs now. It is when those veins stand out that one is a man.
I pulled that quote too. So good. So good.
I've never heard that notion of, I know I'm a man when the veins stick out on the back of my hand. What a wild observation. Right?
And just the idea of being like, oh, it's this physical attribute that makes it, if it does, I guess.
Yeah.
I have another one that was near the graveyard time. I pulled so many immediately. I was like, okay, I gotta relax.
I know I have too many too, but it's fun.
We believe that we invent symbols. The truth is that they invent us.
I love this, yeah.
We are their creatures, shaped by their hard defining edges. When soldiers take their oath, they are given a coin, an assignee stamped with the profile of the autarch. Their acceptance of that coin is their acceptance of the special duties and burdens of military life. They are soldiers from that moment, though they may know nothing of the management of arms. I did not know that then, but it is a profound mistake to believe that we must know such things to be influenced by them. And in fact, to believe so is to believe in the most debased and superstitious kind of magic. The would-be sorcerer alone has faith in the efficacy of pure knowledge. Rational people know that things act of themselves are not at all.
And that's interesting. I mean, if this is a world that has magic, him sort of using magic as the thing that only foolish people believe in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But he does like a little incantation later. Is that real? Is that kid stuff? I don't know. Also, I didn't realize this since we talked about it. I'm like, he gets a coin from Vodalis. So he thinks it's a special, different coin. But what he did get was the assignee stamp with the profile of the autarch.
Yeah, right. He got the thing that all soldiers get.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're a soldier now, kid.
Or is this Vodalis being like, yeah, I was a soldier and now I'm not?
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Passing it on. Who knows?
This is a little sequence that I referenced earlier that I think is really cool. I have no way of knowing how old those tunnels are. I suspect, though I can hardly say why, that they antedate the citadel above them, ancient though it is. It comes to us from the very end of the age when the urge to flight, the outward urge that sought new suns, not ours, remained, though the means to achieve that flight were sinking like dying fires. Remote as that time is, from which hardly one name is recalled, we still remember it. Before it, there must have been another time, a time of burrowing, of the creation of dark galleries that is now utterly forgotten. I have one more I need to do.
I also have one more.
All right.
It's about the coin. I was coin obsessed.
Yeah.
This was him talking about, now that he had the coin and he like went and he couldn't stop thinking about it. To carry the coin about with me was out of the question. As soon as there was an opportunity to do so, I slipped into the necropolis alone and sought out my mausoleum. The weather had turned that day. I pushed through drenching shrubbery and trudged over long, aged grass that had begun to flatten itself for winter. When I reached my retreat, it was no longer the cool, inviting cave of summer, but an icy trap where I sensed the nearness of enemies too vague for names, opponents of Vodalis, who surely knew that by now that I was his sworn supporter. As soon as I entered, they would rush forward to swing the black door shut on newly oiled hinges. I knew that it was nonsense, of course, yet I also knew there was truth in it, that it was a proximity in time, I felt. In a few months or a few years, I might reach the point at which those enemies waited for me, when I had swung the axe I had chosen to fight, a thing a torturer does not normally do.
Torture doesn't have to fight. So good. All right. This was a little long, but I adore it. Okay. Yes, I recall it now. That little square of this is, by the way, this is the librarian talking.
Yeah.
That little square of green and brown. I believe they dry rosemary there to put in pillows. I was sitting there, as I said, and had been for several watches, when it came to me that I was reading no longer. For some time, I was hard put to say what I had been doing. When I tried, I could only think of certain odors and textures and colors that seemed to have no connection with anything discussed in the volume I held. At last, I realized that instead of reading it, I had been observing it as a physical object. The red, I recalled, came from the ribbons sewn to the headband so that I might mark my place. The texture that tickled my fingers was that of the paper on which the book was printed. The smell in my nostrils was old leather, still bearing the traces of birch oil. It was only then, when I saw the books themselves, that I began to understand their care. We have books here bound in the hides of echinids, krakens, and beasts so long extinct that those whose studies they are for the most part of the opinion that no trace of them survives unfossilized. We have books bound wholly in metals of unknown alloy, and books whose bindings are covered with thick-set gems. We have books cased in perfumed woods, shipped across the inconceivable gulf between creations. Books doubly precious because no one on earth can read them. We have books whose papers are matted of plants from which spring curious alkaloids, so that the reader, in turning their pages, is taken unaware by bizarre fantasies and chimeric dreams. Books whose pages are not paper at all, but delicate wafers of white jade, ivory, and shell. Books, too, whose leaves are the desiccated leaves of unknown plants. Books we have also that are not books at all to the eye, scrolls and tablets and recordings on 100 different substances. There is a cube of crystal here, though I can no longer tell you where, no larger than the ball of your thumb, that contains more books than the library itself does. Though a harlot might dangle it from one ear for an ornament, there are not enough volumes in the world to counterweight the other. All these I came to know, and I made safeguarding them my life's devotion.
I also flagged that, but it was so good.
Dude.
The delicate wafers of ivory and bone, like thinking of a page as like this wafer, like what a spectacular variety. Like, I'm like, just take me through the shelves.
Bring me to that library. Dude, books whose papers are matted of plants from which spring curious alkaloids that the reader, in turning their pages, is taken unaware by bizarre fantasies and chimeric dreams. They're books spiked with drugs. Yeah. We got drug books. It's like, open the page and you're like, woohoo!
Yeah. You also reminded me that in the library, they also talked about rats making nests and smearing their crap on the books.
Yeah.
For their language.
For their language. I was like, what? What does that mean?
I mean,
for the rat's language?
My brain immediately went to, going, past the future and then into something that feels like the past again. I'm like, we got lab rats. We do enough experiments on them. Rats be smart. They've now have a language. And then humanity declines. Rats survive.
Yeah, maybe. That's a lot packed into one word.
Yeah, but if they're writing a language, it's just like those little sentences. There's so many. What does that mean? What does it mean? Oh, it's so exciting. Great.
Right, I lied. I have one more thing that's 2 sentences. And I'm surprised you didn't bring it up because I read this and I started cackling because it's exactly what I've always described myself. And we've talked about many times on this show. Uh-huh. Do you know what I'm going to say?
I feel like I do, but read
this is the archivist says, I began, as most young people do, by reading the books I enjoyed. But I found that narrowed my pleasure in time until I spent most of my hours searching for such books.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel seen. I feel seen. The Arcus is like, I spent more time thinking about what book to read than reading books.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, it's me. Amazing. Well, very excited to be starting this new book series. And, I think obviously Mr. Erickson set such a high bar, and our, I think, love of Malazan and just being swept up in the incredible prose and vivid imagery and world that he created. I was starting to worry that we wouldn't reach that bar. And I feel like we found a series that is going to kind of give us a lot of those same pleasures. So I'm really excited, and I'm grateful for you to bringing it to my attention. And hopefully folks are hanging out with us doing the same.
Woo!
How many chapters next week? Until chapter
7 through 13.
Yeah, 7 through 13 next week. We'll see you then.
When the
Keep
world
dancing.
is dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality, open up those pages. It's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends.